Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody around the world. I'm Gerrit Bloothooft from the Netherlands, and today I would like to present the Dutch corpus of given names since 1790. A fantastic corpus which is available online. The data have a high coverage of the given names of the full population and provide excellent opportunities for studies on popularity and geographical presentation of given names over more than 200 years. The material is an example of corpus-based onomastics, based on digitization of huge quantities of data. In the Netherlands, we have outstanding data, both from the modern civil registration and the historical vital registration, which started in 1811. We made these data available online, where they can be accessed and studied by everyone. Below is an example of the relative popularity of EVA. In green, data from the historical vital registers, in red, those from the modern civil registration. The fit in 1880 is usually excellent, which gives confidence in the accuracy of the data. We see a stable popularity until 1970, followed by a renewed interest when the name became fashionable, which popularity continues until today. Given name popularity is available online for various countries, as shown here for EVA. It shows for Belgium, Germany, Norway, USA, and France. They started best in 1880, but the 19th century is not covered. I now go into some details of the data coverage in the Netherlands. The baseline are the numbers of birth shown here from Netherlands statistics over the whole period. There is a steady increase in the 19th century, which stabilizes in the last century, but with a baby boom between 1945 and 1970. From the modern civil registration, we could derive the given names, but less and less for earlier years. As in other countries, 1880 then is a reasonable start for estimations for the full population, while after 1945 the data are almost complete. For the 19th century, we made use of the complete digitized marriage certificates, which are digitally available from the start of registration in 1811. From these, we could extract given names and year of birth for bride and groom. The year of birth then gives fair coverage from 1790 onwards. In all, this is the coverage for the entire period in the Netherlands. It should be noted that in the 19th century there was a child mortality of about 30%. So the actual coverage for people at marital age is better than shown here. The data are available online with the internet address above. There are almost 450,000 different given names for which information is given as initial name, succeeding name, in case of multiple names, and numbers for male and female name bearers. The popularity of name is shown as estimated number and percentage per year between 1790 and 2017. And for the current population, the geographic distribution is shown at municipality level. We are working on comparable presentations for the 19th century. For 20,000 names, an explanation is given about the etymology and famous name bearers. This information is given per name, but it is also possible to select a group of names that share a character pattern, for instance, a specific diminutive. All search options, presentation options, and the results are shown on one single web page. A name can be given on top here, while there are 5 search options: an exact match, selection out of names that have a certain beginning and or contain a string of characters, and an advanced option to show joint results for names that fulfill a specific character pattern. I will come back to that later. Then, popularity, geography, and explanation are the 3 topic choices. A final choice is for male or female name bearers and a choice between numbers or percentage in the presentation. Below, the relative popularity of my name, Gerrit, is shown. It shows a stable popularity in the 19th century and a gradual decrease in the last century. Only a few babies nowadays still get such a traditional name. Here, the difference is demonstrated between a presentation in numbers or as percentage of the total number of births in a year. The upper panel shows numbers and therefore is influenced by birth rate and the effect of post-war baby boom. The relative presentation below is much more stable and interpretable. The decrease in the 20th century is the consequence of a gradual loss of tradition of naming after family, an exponent of the individualization of society. This is the geographic distribution of my name across the country at municipality level. The name is not very popular in the Catholic South, where the Latin form Gerardus is preferred. The middle of the country is the Bible Belt, where naming after family is maintained the longest. In the following, I would like to show you some examples of specific issues on popularity across 2 centuries. Here's an example that the registration procedure can have an influence on figures. In 1811, that changed from parish registration to civil registration. I already mentioned the variants Gerrit and Gerardus. Especially the Latin Gerardus shows a peculiar drop in popularity in 1811. Here, the start of civil registration. Before 1811, the priest wrote down the name of the baptized baby and in most cases chose the Latin form. But after 1811, the parents had a full freedom in the spelling of the name and did less follow the Latin tradition, resulting in the drop of popularity, which is complemented here slightly with the increase for Gerrit. The late 18th and early 19th century shows an interesting onomastic effect for the Netherlands being part of the French Empire or being an independent kingdom. In the 18th century, French names were en vogue, especially in the south of the country. But after the French Revolution, their popularity dropped. In 1811, the French demanded the civil certificates to be stated in French, which increased the number of French names here, which number again dropped after 1815 when Dutch became again the administrative language. In addition, we see in the second half of the 20th century here the fashion of Jacqueline and Anne. Here are some examples of revival of traditional names such as Sarah and David. For both names, it exemplifies the renewed interest in names from the Old Testament in the area of fashion, after a steady decline over 1.5 century. A given name can show as initial name, but also in a later position in a multiple given name. This is shown here for Hubert and the Latin form Hubertus. The interpretation of popularity as succeeding name is problematic here, because this is complicated by the increasing popularity of multiple names in general, especially when 3 or more names are in play. It's not possible to disentangle both effects very well. So the increasing popularity of Hubertus as succeeding name and the increasing popularity of multiple names. I already mentioned the option to define a group of names that share a pattern and to present their joint characteristics. This is demonstrated here for names ending with the diminutive morpheme je. Below is the start of 7,500 names that have that diminutive according to frequency, especially here for it is a woman's name, female name. The joint popularity of the diminutive je is shown on top, with a decreasing popularity that started already in the beginning of the 20th century. This might signal early female emancipation, as many traditional female names are the diminutive of a male name, which is disliked over the last century. The panel below shows the popularity of the diminutive yun, which was dropped much earlier, likely because n is usually not spoken. I just mentioned here that the pattern search is governed by regular expressions, a powerful tool in computational linguistics in general. Here are a few examples of the formalism. It's with this character, we select all names starting with Jan. Second example shows how we can select all names ending with and the third option shows the or option between somewhere a name that contains in or at, and the dot is any character. I will not go into details of this formalism. So, in conclusion, a few onomastic observations shown today on 2 centuries of naming in the Netherlands. They are, first, the influence of administrative procedures from Paris to civil registration, and the influence of foreign rulers, the dislike of French names in the early 19th century and German names after the Second World War. Furthermore, we see the mirroring of societal changes. Traditional society in the 19th century, stable naming, and the decline of tradition starting in the early 20th century until the current time of individualism, and fashion. Finally, I hope that I have demonstrated the enormous possibilities when excellent data are digitally available, not only for research, but also online for the general public. We have over 10 million page views a year. Furthermore, the feature of pattern search is very powerful. I use it almost daily. And of course, the underlying data are even richer than shown here. They are in the MySQL table and open vistas of onomastic research. And one of which I want to bring to the fore here, to explain the difference in popularity development in the same name in different countries, an interesting topic for international cooperation. This concludes my presentation. I invite you to spend some time visiting the website and to play around with all options. Looking forward to the following discussion. Thank you.
So thank you, Gerrit, for this very interesting presentation. And it's amazing, this corpus that you collected, so many data and so many options to search names. So really amazing. You mentioned that there are names that have not been used for some time, and then there has been a revival of traditional names. Are there any patterns? I mean, some names that are more likely to be used again, or is there anything in names that have enjoyed some kind of revival?
Yeah, well, it's actually what I've shown in the presentation, that names from the Old Testament are now quite popular in the Netherlands. Of course, they were always there, but they are now there are many of them in the top 20 of the most popular children's names. And I cannot explain that actually. We had the name Sem, S-E-M, And I think no one knows that's a son of Noah in the Old Testament. But it became very popular, maybe because Sam is also, well, in pronunciation, it does not make, you cannot distinguish it from Samuel, in short. So, and that may be an explanation, but it's very hard. But there are many. Sarah is very popular, also because it's an Arabic name, and that may be an intercultural issue. David is popular as always. Levi and Ruben are also in the top 20. So that's a trend for the last 20 years, 10 years.
So thank you. Are there any names that are banned in the Netherlands or have been?
No, we have very liberal name law, and actually, well, if a child is not harmed by the name, you can choose any name with the standard characters actually. So no numbers are allowed. It's as everywhere in the world, I think. So we have no banned names, but before 1970, there you had to defend a name which was rather new or came from another language, and so on. But for the last 50 years, as in many countries in Europe, there is not a serious limitation. So parents can be very creative.
So that's good. That's fine. One more question is, how does a name like Adriana get a nickname like Sian? Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know whether I mispronounced it.
No, it's Adriana and Sian.
No, Adriana is fine. Sian, okay.
Well, I'm afraid I have to say I don't know actually how that's possible. No, I do not have an answer.
Okay.
There's interesting information that integers are allowed in American names in some states. I know from an example that was refused in Australia, I think, which was the name For Real, where you have the number 4 and then real.
So.
Okay, but
that's interesting.
In the Netherlands, it's not allowed.
Let's see here. So there have been court rulings in the USA that have banned numerous names, and there is a rare name, T9C, which began in Texas in the 19th century, which seems to have been accepted in that spelling in many southern states. So yeah, Jennifer Eight is a columnist in the New York Times. So
maybe I can just add to my presentation that I also brought it as an example how you can present onomastic data, very huge corpus, in a very in a way that people can do research actually themselves, and the possibility of regular expressions to search for to have joined properties of a huge number of names is very revealing for long-term developments. So you do not have to stick to a single name to see something happen. You can do this for hundreds or thousands of names together, and that's and you can do that all. You can do it all online, so everyone can access this. So it's I think that's very important for the future, that we make available data online for many people to search and to explore.
And it's freely available. I guess that's updated, keeps being updated, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's of course, ideally you would have it updated every year with the names of the children for chosen for in that year. But well, from the well, then it's a cost. It's a costly issue where you have to ask for the new names, and that
Yeah,
makes
that's
it not possible
demanding.
to do this every year. But we try to do it every 4 or 5 years to have an update at all levels.
No. I'm sure it must be quite demanding to do so. So, well, any other questions? Are symbols like these even at permitted in names in the Netherlands or anywhere?
These particular symbols are not allowed.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the @ sign may be in other countries acceptable, but there are also many countries that do not accept these. I'm not aware of European countries where these are permitted.
Yeah, I wonder, are you aware of places where these symbols are allowed?
Not really.
I
I know that
no,
the @ was not accepted, and the others, no.
no. I was wondering, William, who asked the question, whether he knows of places where this is allowed in Europe. Oh, by the way, in Jennifer 8.v, she only chose the 8 as part of her name when she was a teenager, so it would not have appeared in her original birth certificate. So you wouldn't have found it to update your database.
That's right. It may also be good to mention that these are all official registrations, and at least in the Netherlands, it's not always the case that you use this official registration as the name in daily life. So so I mentioned Gerardus as a Latin form that the church promotes, but in daily life he would rarely be mentioned or addressed as Gerardus, but as Gerard or even Gerrit. And many of these Latinized names, traditional names, so you do not know actually the daily use of the names, which is a handicap. But
it's just different kind of data.
yeah, well, you
So
should take that into account in the interpretation of the data.
if there are any, is there anything you'd like to add, Gerrit?
As my final slide, I said that I would like to see, I would love to have cooperation with researchers or in other countries to compare the popularity issues between countries, because I noticed that there are differences among countries in the diffusion of popularity of some names and certain names, and it would be nice to have a worldwide cooperation or comparison of these data,
Maybe
and
also see whether
we
there are
might learn
different.
about that.
There is one more question here. Sorry, that's clear. If you already said, does the database include only the first name on the certificate or all 4 names?
Well, it's focused on single names, but we distinguish between the situation that a name is positioned in initial position or in a later position, if a multiple name. So that can be researched and looked upon separately. So we have them, but we do not have the full name as a combination of more names, of multiple names, because that would that would not be very informative, because these are quite unique often in the combination. So you have all frequency ones, and so we choose for this option.
Okay, thank you. We
It's
have
by the way of
also.
interest that in our country we present all the names that are accepted by the government or by the officials. Also, if when they have frequency 1, in many countries there's a limit, well, a threshold of, let's say, 3, 4, 5 babies that should have got the name before presenting it. But in our case, we can present it from frequency 1 onwards. We do not present these frequencies, but we present the name, I should say.
So we have a comment that's Linda. Greetings from Albania. I've finished a study about the trends of top names in Albania. I would be happy to participate in a comparative study of the top names trends. And then we have Cleveland. So is there any data on naming by Flemish speakers in Belgium? So you can compare that with the Netherlands?
Yes, there is some data from Belgium, but that's only available for the last 10, 20 years. So we cannot make a comparison over a longer period. But there is a difference. If you are crossing the border, then suddenly some names show up in Flanders. Oh. But there's also, as in many European countries, a popularity of same series of names. I think Adam is quite popular now across Europe, and I wonder why that is so. How it can be that a name shows up and becomes popular in such across different languages and across your whole of Europe.
So here we are. Thank you, Gerrit, for this very interesting presentation and a lively discussion.